In 1995, an educational and commemorative event was held at Post 63, marking the 50 years that had passed since the end of World War II. Students from area elementary schools and members of the community were invited to the Legion Hall to pass through the exhibits and meet and talk with many of the veterans. The veterans shared their stories and gave first-hand accounts of the history of that monumental event. Even though most of those Post 63 members have gone on to their eternal rest, Post 63 continues to honor what journalist Tom Brokaw has pronounced as the greatest generation. To be sure, in the many conflicts to follow, all those who have faithfully served are duly honored as well. As the United States marks the 100th anniversary of the American Legion, and also of Post 63, it is most appropriate that we look back on that time and its significance to our shared memory. Some years ago, as part of that anniversary event in 1995, a VCR tape presentation entitled Roll Call was created featuring those who served. That tape has been converted to a digital format and exists as a standalone episode. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, brought the United States squarely into what was already a world consumed by war. President Franklin Roosevelt asked for and received a declaration of war, but America was not yet ready. At the December 8, 1941 meeting, Post 63 members listened to a talk prepared by World War I veteran Theodore Chiefus, outlining America's dire position after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor and the Philippines and the challenges that lay ahead. Mr. Chiefus owned and operated the Hollywood Theater, which was a movie house where many events were held to aid the community and the war effort. Immediately, Post 63 stepped up its activities by donating to the USO, co-sponsoring countywide scrap metal drives, and forming a send-off committee for new enlistees and draftees. Putnam County's Ohio National Guard Unit, renamed Company G, was part of the 37th Buckeye Division, just as Ottawa's Company M had been in 1917. By October of 1940, the newly federalized 37th Division consisted of nearly 10,000 men from Ohio. Company G, now in the 148th Infantry, had been training at Camp Shelby, Mississippi, and after Pearl Harbor, all leaves were canceled. New recruits were constantly being added as enlistment and a military draft reached record numbers. In early 1942, the nearly 18,000-man strong 37th Division made its way to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, for training with plans for deployment to Europe. However, given the increased urgency and needs in the Pacific Theater, the Buckeye Division was sent across the country by train to San Francisco, and in April and May of 1942, sailed off to the South Pacific by troop ship. Ohio was the only state to send an entire division into war. The 37th Buckeye Division would become an island-hopping force, often alongside the forces of the U.S. Marine Corps. Assigned the same mission, the men were often issued the same combat uniforms as their leatherneck brothers in arms. After training in the Fiji Islands, Company G saw beach landings and combat on the islands of Guadalcanal and Rendova. They received their baptism by fire on New Georgia, where Private First Class William Lauf of Fort Jennings was killed in action. As the 148th moved on to the Solomon Islands, Private First Class Ashley Miller also made the supreme sacrifice and was killed July 29th while attempting to take out a Japanese machine gun installation. In March of 1944, on the island of Bougainville in the Solomon Islands, Company G was involved in some of the most intense fighting of the war in the Pacific. It was there that they were assigned as part of the 148th, 129th, and 145th Divisions to take back Hill 700, which had been overrun by the Japanese. The hill was crucial to the defense of a fighter plane airbase, and after bloody combat, Hill 700 was retaken, helping to secure the island. Within months, the 148th was sent to the Philippines and the liberation of Luzon and Manila. During that mission, Ottawa native Lieutenant Nicholas Dooley and Lieutenant Lawrence Colley of Cuba were killed as a part of Company G. Many of the members of the 148th received Purple Hearts and other citations, returning to become officers and movers in the post-war growth of Post 63, just as their predecessors from World War I's Company M had done. Along with them were Sid Goodkin, Harold Moorman, Alvin Jiggs Compton, and Ed Showman. As the war progressed with more American successes than setbacks, Post 63, whose membership was comprised mostly of World War I veterans, continued its activities in organizing scrap drives, helping to form victory corps in county high schools, gathering and sending off goodwill packages to those at war, and donating to the Red Cross and other causes, like the Canteen in Lima. Canteens were stops along the railroad lines where soldiers in transport could get a good meal and some social interaction with local volunteers. In this time of national crisis, Post 63 continued to commemorate Memorial Day and participate in the funeral services for World War I veterans and those from World War II who had died in the service to their country. Their commitment to honor our veterans remains resolute to this day. Many veterans were awarded Purple Hearts, Silver Stars, Bronze Stars, ribbons, citations, and commendations. But what meant the most to every man and woman that served was the gratitude of a grateful nation for a job well done. 95 service personnel from Putnam County who made the supreme sacrifice have their names listed as Gold Star veterans of World War II and are rightly honored in the main hallway of the Putnam County Courthouse. The names of nearly all who served in World War II from the county are preserved there as part of a project partially underwritten by Post 63 to honor veterans of all of America's efforts to secure liberty and freedom throughout the world. The original 1945 panels were displayed on the southeast corner of the courthouse lawn, and then, due to weather-related deterioration, were moved into the main entrance in 1960. Those onyx-colored plaques with names emblazoned in gold lettering remain on display to bear witness to the commitment of the Putnam County community to honor those who served our nation. Families proudly displayed the Gold Star banner of the fallen and the Blue Star banner of those in the service. It was once said by the daughter of a World War II veteran, "Make no mistake, our world, our country would not exist today as we know it if Japan, Germany, and the Axis powers had won. Evil would reign." Many, including Company G, served by taking the beaches and fighting in the jungles of the Asian and Pacific islands with names like Bougainville, Iwo Jima, Okinawa, and Saipan. And yes, the names of the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are forever etched in our collective memory. Many others helped drive the Germans and Italians out of the desert sands of North Africa with the decisive victory at El Alamein. And still many others participated in the invasion on the beaches of Anzio and Normandy, which led to the liberation of towns in the great cities of Europe like Paris. They succeeded in pushing the Nazis back to Berlin, and in doing so, discovered the horrors of the Holocaust. Still many more sailed on the waters of the world's great oceans, delivering the men and the materials that would turn the tide of the war. Their valued service helped secure victories in the temperate waters of the Atlantic and shark-infested seas of the South Pacific, and triumphs in the Coral Sea, Guadalcanal, and the Leyte Gulf. Meanwhile, many others patrolled and defended the skies above our world by flying into well-defended airspace to deliver crucial supplies, along with dropping the bombs that served to cripple the enemy. Still others toiled on the home front in factories and on farms, preparing a nation for the ultimate goal. Americans planted victory gardens, collected scrap metal, and accepted the rationing of goods to make the sacrifices that led to victory abroad. That victory came on May 8, 1945, with the surrender of Germany, called VE Day. followed by the surrender of Japan almost 4 months later, called VJ Day, on September 2nd. As our men and women returned to their homes, they did so with a purpose, and without knowing it, they became the greatest generation. Post-63 historian Dave Kirsch wrote this in 1994 in the 75th Celebration publication. I believe this is an appropriate time to pay tribute to the World War II Korean veterans and their entire generation. Their ranks are thinning, and our fallen comrades are missed, but nothing is the same. They have made our world a better, safer place. Few generations have dominated our history as they have. From their ranks came 7 U.S. presidents: Eisenhower, Kennedy, LBJ, Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Bush. Remembering some of their accomplishments, their character and unselfishness in times of great peril, can serve both as a tribute to them and an inspiration to all Americans. When they returned home, those veterans built strong families and communities. Post-63 membership swelled from 90 in 1946 to almost 500 in 1947 and to well over 600 in 1948. This period of massive growth resulted in Post-63 moving from the Ottawa City Building to the Ramp Building on Walnut Street, and finally to a new facility in February of 1954. Watch as our story continues.